Today's topic is partition. Was it avoidable? Why did I choose partition? The pictures of workers trying to reach home that were flashed a few days ago, made me reflect about 1947, those terrible days of 1947. This exodus was not the making of the poor, the present exodus. It was thrust on him by the Indian upper class and the Indian middle class. Of course, even they did not want to do it. It so happened anyway. These guys, they walked to reach their homes. Many reached, a few didn't. I was moved to tears when someone asked him, what is the problem? His reply was, a Aurora virus. He didn't even know the name of the virus, but it had affected him deeply. See, here in 2020, the workers were trying to reach home. In 1947, it was the other way around. There, the poor people, the ordinary people, were driven out of their home to a very uncertain and for most a very dark future. Even then, the upper class and the middle class, relatively speaking, escaped the partition unscathed. But the poor, they had to suffer. It is not that, they didn't know what was coming, and many of them were taking sides. Okay, there was an Englishman called Darling who went around the Punjab region and the region around Delhi during those days, just a few months before the partition. And when he asked around, people had clear, views. Most Muslims supported Muslim League and Jinnah, and many Hindus supported Mahatma Gandhi and Congress. But when he asked those guys, what does Jinnah say? Mostly the reply was, Sanu kuch pata nahi ji. I don't know. That was the reply. But they implicitly trusted Jinnah, the Muslims. The Hindus implicitly trusted Gandhi. But they never realized that they would be thrown out of their home and they had to walk miles and miles. Not only they had to walk, but they had to lose their property, their lives, their women, their children, everything, pretty much everything. This happened mainly to the poor. The rich, of course, they knew what was coming, and the transfer of money from Lahore to Delhi in the year 1947 amounted to 250 crores, which is a big money. And the lockers in Lahore were emptied, the jewels were all transferred to Delhi. If you take Birla, 80% of his industries he moved to North India from the Western Pakistan, from Punjab. From the Muslim side also, many people wanted to go to the Pakistan side because they thought there will be quick promotions. The army guys thought there will be quick promotions. The government officials also thought that way. The rich, in any case, they bought property, much before partition happened. And from the Muslim side too, it was only the poor who suffered. What the history again and again tells us that whenever a calamity happens, it's the poor who take the hit. I don't want to repeat those stories. The stories were all terrible. It can't be explained in words. In fact, many historians feel that more Muslims were killed during the partition days than were Hindus, which also stand to reason because the Hindus had a broader area to operate. The Hindus on the Muslim side had one option. No, they could convert themselves to Islam. Substantial number of persons did. That option was not available on the Hindu side. This is important. No, we should know this. We should know this. So when we talk of partition, it's not only Hindu Holocaust. It's a common Holocaust for the people of then India. Whole cities were completely, cleared out of a particular community. Lahore had about 40% of Hindus, I think 45, and within a year it almost came down to zero. The similar is the case with Amritsar. Amritsar had 49% Muslims. Within a few months, it also came down to zero. And Muslims were killed in Alwar, in Bharatpur, in Gurmukteshwar, in Gurgaon, in Bihar, you name it. The same thing happened to the Hindus also on the other side. The irony is, partition was brought about to avoid civil war. Even before partition happened, Punjab had a huge loss of lives. Someone says around 35,000 people lost their lives before partition. It was precisely to avoid loss of lives that Congress and Muslim League divided India. But what happened was the division cost much more lives than they imagined in their darkest dreams. The statistics are not available, but it could be anything between 5 lakhs to 1.5 million. Some people say it's even 2 million. Some of the leaders foresaw this, like the then Pakistan Premier Sikandar Hayat Khan, when he said, so if Pakistan happens, it'll be bloodbath. He said in 1940. He didn't live to see Pakistan happening, but his predictions, they unfortunately, they proved to be true. But why did this happen? Why did this massacre happen? The reason was India didn't have many British troops. The total number of Europeans living during those days in India is less than 100,000. That included even civilians. The army was highly compromised. The Muslims knew at that time that they would go to Pakistan, the Muslim soldiers. The Hindu soldiers knew at that time that they would come to India. There are of course professional. Gurkhas were professional. The soldiers from Madras, the sappers were professional. But others were all, they were infected by this communal virus. May not be at the officer class, but at the soldiers level, many of them were infected by this communal virus. The police was highly communal. Not only that, the very amusing statement by Sardar Patel, he was lamenting that the RSS guys who were prosecuted in the Bombay presidency, they all got away. In many cases, the court imposing fine on the government for fighting a case. Sardar Patel laments that the judiciary, the police, everyone is compromised. It is impossible to prosecute an RSS guy in Bombay presidency. I am quite sure the same was the story on the Pakistan side too. So it was impossible to prosecute. The murderers, they got scot-free. Some of the figures were mind-boggling, like what happened in Jammu and later what happened in the state of Hyderabad. They were all shameful chapters in Indian history. Why did this happen? That's the question we should ask. Why did partition happen? That's the only question we should ask. There was a story, I don't know whether it is true or not. Chou En-lai was asked about his views on French Revolution, and his reply was that it's too early to comment. When it comes to Indian history, partition happened not that far away in India's time. India has about 5,000 years of history. So partition happened after all about 70, 75, 74 years ago. So partition is, it's like a huge canvas. Let's say Rembrandt or Bosch, let's say Bosch. Bosch's canvas is huge, is 10 feet by 14 feet or something like this. If you watch the canvas standing very near to it, you will not be able to make out anything. You will have to walk away to understand what that canvas tells. That is also true of partition. We are standing too near partition. Of course, now we can't move away and we are constrained by our time. We just can't do. We will have to make do with what we have. So my story of partition, which I could glean after looking at many documents, and this is my story. It may not be your story. It may not even be many historians' story also. This is how I look at the events that led to partition. So I am speaking mostly from memory. Of course, I have made some few notes here and there. I might be, fumbling with the dates or, the exact quotes I may not be able to make. But I'm quite sure the contents, are all absolutely genuine. I generally verify before I speak. Okay, now, there are 4 players in India who were involved in the story of the horror of partition. They were, of course, the British imperialism. The British imperialism was ruling India from 1757, partially, at least from the Charters Act in 1833. It was ruling India for more than 150 years, let us say. And we have the Congress party, which represented a wide spectrum of Indians. It represented Hindus, Muslims, Christians, Sikhs, everyone. When I say Congress party, I would only speak about the prominent personalities of that party, like Mahatma Gandhi or Jawaharlal Nehru. The third player was the Muslim League, which was founded in 1906. Remember, that party was able to win a nation within 50 years of its establishment. That was almost a miracle, but it had happened anyway. Then the fourth player is the princely states. We had 500 odd states in India, many small states and quite a few big states. Okay, they were ruled by Nawabs and Rajas. The princely states were, they were rather latecomers. They were considered as candidates for Federation of India only after the first Roundtable Conference, if I'm not mistaken, 1930 or around that time. And I am not going to talk about them because at that time it was expected that the states were likely to give much trouble to forming of the federation, but it did not happen due to the skill and sagacity of leaders like Sardar Patel and of course V.P. Menon and Mountbatten. Of course, he also helped. So I am not going to talk about the princely states at all. I am going to concentrate only on three major players. That is the British government, the Congress, and the Muslim League. The British rule in India was established step by step by step. It was completely autocratic and despotic up to a period. Then the rule was stage by stage by stage. The so-called responsible government came about. So I will narrate this. The first act towards responsible government was the Charter Act of 1833, when India became officially a colony of Britain. So the company was then supposed to rule on behalf of the British Crown. Okay. The next step was the Queen's Proclamation of 1858 and the Government of India Act of 1858, which abolished the company, and a viceroy was appointed here, and he ruled India. And the Queen's, of course, the proclamation it stated that we will not interfere with the state's affair. See, when I say state here, this is very important. During those days, the princely states were called states and the present day states were called provinces. Okay, so there's confusion. When I say state, I only mean the princely states. It's not the modern state government. That you should keep in mind. The Queen's Proclamation said that they would not interfere with the princely states, and government appointments would be open to Indians, irrespective of their caste, their creed, and their station, everything. It had so many classes. The next one was the Council Act of 1861, when for the first time Indians entered the Governor General's Council. Okay, I think the Indians who entered was Maharaja of Patiala, I think Maharaja of Benares, and I think Dinkar Rao, Gwalior Diwan. He was the Gwalior Diwan. He betrayed Rani of Jhansi, and he was awarded with this, with the entry into the Council of the Viceroy. Then what happened is the Council Act of 1892 happened. There the membership was increased. This was the position till the 1900. During this time, at least the upper caste Hindus of India could understand the benefits of modern education. So they entered the colleges, they went abroad, they wanted to take part in the government, which was not the case with the Muslims for quite some time, because they always had that, their mind that, they were the rulers and they were betrayed by the British, and they were totally against, the Western education. So even the rich Muslims were shy of entering colleges, and they were quite happy where they were. The result was that in many places, the number of college students from the Muslim community was very, very low. In Bengal, if I remember correctly, it is around 2%. There are, of course, leaders, who thought about this. One of them was, Sir Syed Ahmad Khan. And the MAO, the Muslim Anglo-Oriental College, which later became Aligarh Muslim University, was established in Aligarh to impart modern education mainly to Muslim. Of course, the Hindus are also there, but mainly to Muslim students. That university was established. So when it came to government deployment, when it came to education, the difference was quite evident, and the difference was very, very high. Then afterwards, what happened? The Minto-Marley reforms came, 1909. It was this reform which gave Muslims separate electorate. At that time, for the election to the council, you had Hindu representations and Muslim representation. Then came the Montagu-Chelmsford reforms of 1919. This was the time when diarchy was established in India. Okay. Then came the Government of India Act of 1935. Afterwards came the Independence Act of India 1947. So these various stages from 1833 to 1947, the Britishers were slowly but surely inducting Indians into the political decision making. They were very slow, but they were surely doing it. And we have been asking that there should be a responsible government, people should participate in decision making in government for so many years and in so many ways. Okay, now this is in broad how the British rule evolved, the British, the decision making evolved in India. This, you should keep this in mind before we go to the actual nitty-gritty of our partition. Now, let's come to the Congress. The Congress was established in 1885. Everyone know that the year and all those things. I don't want to go into the history of Congress. But what did Congress bring in to India? It was the first time in the history of India that someone told us that individuals mattered, that the citizen, an ordinary citizen, he mattered. Of course, people might say many things, but politically, I am talking about politically. For decision making, you will have to consult the ordinary person in a systematic way. You should have laws which ensure that an ordinary person is consulted if a law is made which is going to affect him. So it is the Congress party which started thinking in those terms. That is the first revolution which was made by the Congress party. Of course, at that time when they meant, they were thinking about the upper caste persons also. But they did not think about them as a community. They thought about them as individual citizens. This is the major difference which happened in the Indian political arena. But it took some time for the Muslims to think in terms of Muslim as the total community. They were all functioning in various groups. Bengal Muslims were functioning in their domain, and the UP Muslims were functioning in their domain, and Punjabi Muslims, they looked down upon everyone. They were moving in their domain. Okay, it took some time for them to understand that there should be a political party which should represent the interests of the Muslims. I am not saying that Congress did not want to represent the interests of the Muslims. Congress, right from the beginning, Congress said that it would represent Indians. It never thought in terms of representing a particular community. No, it never thought that way. But the fact was, the Congress did not have many Muslim members. In 1905, there were about 5% members might be, Muslims. The Muslim League came about in 1906. I spoke about Minto-Mali reforms. When Minto-Mali reforms were about to be implemented, the Muslims realized that they did not have a political party which would make use of the separate communal representation which have been given to the Muslims. So this party was established in 1906. They said they will be completely loyal to the king, and they also said that they would work towards communal amity. That was there in the first meeting itself. Muslim League did not come about as an adversary of Hindus. It wanted to represent the Muslims, but it wanted to live in amity with the Hindus. That is history. Okay, when this happened, the first handshake between Muslims and the Congress party happened with the Lucknow Pact. Most of the people don't know that some of the prime movers of Lucknow Pact were leaders like Bal Gangadhar Tilak, who was considered one of the great Hindu leaders. It was he who pioneered this, and is he who pleaded for this, for the Lucknow Pact. The Lucknow Pact between Congress and Muslim League, meant that the Congress recognized separate electorates for Muslims, and the Congress also accepted that wherever Muslims are minorities, they should be given weightage, they should be given adequate representation, like in states like, in Central Province, United Province, or Madras, Bombay Presidency, in all those places where the Muslims were in a minority, they would be given adequate representation, the council. And where they are majority, like Punjab, the Muslims, agreed that they will give equal weightage to Hindus and Sikhs, non-Muslims. They shared 50-50. In Bengal, they said that they would remain the minority. They had 45 and 55. The seats were shared. This was the agreement which Congress Party and Muslim League had during that time. This Congress Party, nevertheless, was the first party in India to delegitimize religion in the political space and relegate it to the private space. This was quite a tough decision, but Congress Party nevertheless took that decision. They understood right from the beginning that if you mix politics and religion, the mix is is incendiary. It might explode any time. So they were very, very careful. Though many of them were themselves religious, they didn't want to mix politics with religion. This was the position till Gandhi came about. We all know how Gandhi came on the scene after the Jallianwala Bagh massacre and the introduction of rowel attack. During those days, there was a lot of revolutionary violence, was taking place in India. To curtail revolutionary violence, this rowel attack came into being. Incidentally, one of the guys who was the prime movers of this act was C.V. Kumaraswamy Sastri, who was the brother-in-law of C.P. Ramasamy Iyer, who was the Diwan of Travancore. The act was not completely, it was not completely introduced by a British guy. We also helped them draft that act. See, when the rowel attack came about, the entire India went up in flames and everyone objected. Then Jallianwala Bagh happened. It was during this time that Mahatma Gandhi came into prominence. The magic of Gandhi was such that Congress till that time, it was a parlor room party. People gathered and they discussed, they had conferences, and they dispersed. I am exaggerating, of course. This more or less this is what happened. There was never an attempt to involve the masses. Okay, they were talking to masses, but they were not involved at all. It was Gandhi who introduced this mass involvement of people. It was at that time the Muslims were thinking about the Khilafat movement. Many of us may not even know what Khilafat movement is. During the First World War, Turkey was fighting alongside Germans. So when Germany lost the war, Turkey also lost the war. The Treaty of Sèvres, Turkey's, all his holdings were all taken away from Turkey. The holdings in Middle East, what was now Saudi Arabia was with Turkey at that time. So the entire area was taken away from Turkey. The Indian Muslims, they thought that the holy places of Islam, which was then under the control of Turkey, would now be handled by Christian masters. Arabs then were, of course, the puppets of the West. But even now, Saudi Arabia is a puppet of the West. So at that time, they thought whoever was there would be a puppet of the West. And the Muslim holy places would now be controlled by the Christian masters who were sitting in London. This was totally unacceptable to many Muslims. So they said that the Khalifa should not be disturbed. The holy places should be returned to the Khalifa, the Sultan of Turkey. There are other demands. This was the main demand. This is more than enough. This was the main demand. So Gandhi, what he did was, not only Gandhi, see, this is again and again we will have to accept. It's not only Gandhi. The Khilafat movement was supported by all major Congress leaders of the time. It was supported by Pandit Madan Mohan Malaviya. It was supported by Pandit Motilal Nehru. It was supported by Swami Shraddhananda and Gandhi. Okay, Gandhi thought that this is a very nice opportunity to present Hindu and Muslims on the same platform. Both have demands. The demands are that rowel attack should be removed and Swarajya should be there, home rule. Home rule should be there for India. That was the demand. And the Muslims, of course, they wanted Khilafat and they also wanted Swarajya. So Gandhi thought that this was the right time. He was largely successful for 2 or 3 years. On the Muslim side, the Jinnah, of course, Jinnah did not support the Khilafat movement. He was away. That is something we should know. The Muslim side was represented by the famous Ali brothers. Of course, the Muhammad Ali was the more important of the two. They were traveling all around India, and they were awakening, the masses. There were Hindu-Muslim, unity was present everywhere. In many places, cow slaughter was voluntarily withdrawn by Muslims. Swami Shraddhananda spoke from the podium on a Friday prayer in Jama Masjid. This happened. Okay, so the nation was having a camaraderie which had never been seen since then. Till now, it had not been seen at all. It was there. See, why did Congress support this? The Congress supported Khilafat movement not because it was a religious movement. Gandhi took a correct decision. The Congress party took a correct decision at that time, because if Congress party had not supported Khilafat movement, the split between Hindus and Muslims would have happened in 1920 itself. You get my point? So it was necessary for the Congress party to support the Khilafat movement if they want to present the anti-imperialist, front in a better way to the British. So that was the main reason why the Congress party supported the Khilafat movement. The Muslims, of course, they felt that the British government at that time, the British government in India at that time represented the satanic forces. because they are the guys, they were controlling their holy places, so they should be removed. Their aim of opposing the British and the Congress aim of British, they coincided at that time. That was why they were functioning in an unified way. Now what happened? This movement came to a knot because of three reasons. One was that in Kerala there was a huge riot that took place, the so-called Mapla riots. In that, the Muslim peasants, they rose against the Hindu landlords, they butchered many, they converted many. It was a complete mess before the British descended on them, and they killed many Muslims, the Maplas wholesale. There are, of course, the train massacre, so many things. I don't want to go into the Mapla history. But what happened was, the Khilafat movement suddenly became a communal movement where the Hindus were victims. This was not expected either by the Congress or by the Muslim leadership. Okay. In fact, Muhammad Ali was going to Malappuram, to Kerala, to Malabar to address the Muslims when he was arrested in, I think, in Kakinada. I don't know where he was. I think he was arrested in Kakinada. It came as a surprise to them also, to the Muslims also. It came as a surprise. But to cut the long story short, the Mapla riots, it divided the Hindus and Muslims. Then Gandhiji, of course, suddenly withdrew the non-cooperation movement because of the Chauri Chaura incident where the policemen were killed. He said India is not, fit for, it was not fit for, non-violent movement. So I withdraw, my movement. And he did it suddenly to the dismay of both Muslims and the Congress leaders at that time. The third thing was, in Turkey, a revolution happened and the Khalifa himself was thrown out by Mustafa Kamal Pasha. Okay, so the reason why they started this movement, the very purpose of this movement was lost because there's no Khalifa to support. So the entire movement fizzled out. When the movement fizzled out, the Muslims, the Hindus, they were looking for reasons. Who was responsible for the failure of non-cooperation movement? Who was responsible for the failure of the Khilafat movement? The Muslims felt that the Hindus had their own agenda. They were not really supporting, our cause, which was true to some extent, but it was a national agenda. It was a national agenda of freedom, which of course was quite difficult to explain to a ulama or someone. It's quite difficult to explain to him. He felt that the Hindus, did not support them fully. The Hindus, on the other hand, felt that if you give Muslims power, if you give Muslims voice, this is what is going to happen. There will be many more massacres like what happened in Kerala. There's mutual distrust between Hindus and Muslims. Gandhiji tried his best, but you couldn't help but immediately went to prison. By the time he came, things were all, by the time he came out of the prison, things changed beyond recognition. During that time, there was a huge killing that took place in Northwest Frontier province. In Kohat, I think. Hindus were killed. So Gandhi, in anguish, he undertook 21 days fast, I think. This fast, in fact, he took place in Muhammad Ali's house. Gandhi stayed in, Muhammad Ali's house at that time. And his mother looked after Mahatma Gandhi. They all became vegetarian during Gandhi's stay there. This was the relationship between, the personal relationship between Gandhi and the other Muslim leaders during that time. But then the differences, they became irreparable, and Swami Shraddhananda was murdered in Delhi. There's a book which was published in Punjab called Rangila Rasool, which had many derogatory passages about the Prophet. So the publisher was killed, and both the killers were hoisted up as martyrs by the Muslims. That is, both Shraddhananda's killer and the other killer of the publisher of the Rangila Rasool, which was detested by the Hindus. This was the time when Arya Samaj also started this Suddhi ceremony all over North India. Suddhi ceremony meant that Muslims could come back to the Hindu fold after cleansing themselves. There was a ceremony for cleansing themselves. They were allowed to come back to the Hindu fold. Arya Samaj was doing it in Punjab and in the United Province, the present day Uttar Pradesh, much to the anger of the Muslim leaders of that time. And this was a time when RSS was founded in 1924. In 1920 and 21, Hindu-Muslim relationship was almost at the peak, and in 25-26, it was right at the rock bottom. There were communal riots everywhere, and there were distrust between Hindus and Muslims, stoked by Hindu communalists and Muslim communalists. The Congress party, Gandhi was, of course, he was after coming out of prison, he was not into politics at all. He was doing his social work. So the Congress party was not able to handle it at that time. But Jinnah was was still a nationalist. He was still thinking that Hindu-Muslim unity was possible. It was during this time that the Congress party came out with the Nehru report. The Nehru report was it was a visionary document. It envisaged what the future India would be. The Nehru report said that Indian government will be elected by universal franchise, which is very, very important. After the Montagu-Chelmsford reform 1920, the elections took place for the provinces in India. Only 3% of the Indian population, they were eligible to vote. Only 3%. You should remember that. The Congress at that time said every eligible adult should be allowed to vote, both male and female. They were very, very clear. The Congress was very, very clear. But there will not be any separate electorate. It will be a joint electorate. The Muslims will be given 25% of seats in the federal government. There will be a federal government. The federal government, 25% of seats will be given to Muslims. And in the provinces where there were minorities, the seats will be reserved for them, for the Muslims. But where there were majority, like Punjab, Bengal, I think, in both the places, the election will be held. Whoever wins the election will hold the government. There is no reservation for Muslims or Hindus in these places. Okay. And what was important was, this point everyone should note, the Nehru report said that the residual powers will be with the central government. Now, the residual power is a very important concept. Everyone should understand this concept. See, when you have a structure, when you have various provinces and a federal structure, the power has to be shared between the provinces and the federal structure. Okay. So, Nehru report envisaged a strong center. The Nehru report said that the central government will have all the powers and state governments will be given certain powers. Those powers which are not specifically given to the state governments will be with the central government. This was what the Nehru report said. To counter this, the Muslim League came out with 14 points, which was, of course, Jinnah's points. In fact, they were all Jinnah's points. And Jinnah came and presented this before the Congress in the Calcutta. There, Jinnah said that separate electorate should be there. Separate electorate should be maintained. But if the Congress insists, then the Muslims would be prepared to go in for joint electorate. But Jinnah wanted 33% of the states at the center. And he wanted assured majority of Muslims in Punjab and Bengal. Most importantly, he wanted residual powers to be with the provinces. In short, the Nehru report wanted a strong center, but Jinnah and the Muslim League wanted a weak center and strong provinces. The reasons, of course, were obvious. Jinnah said in that Calcutta conference very, very clearly that majorities are always inclined to oppress the minorities. That's a natural law almost. That's what he said, Jinnah said. So that was why any civilized society would assure the minorities that they would have rights which they otherwise would not have had had they been the majority. Otherwise, Jinnah said there would be either revolution or a civil war. But Congress at that time did not accept Jinnah's, this 14 points. They said we could increase this to 27%, the percentage. In fact, the most important point is, at that time, the population of Muslims in India was around 20%, 19.8 or around that percent. So the Congress was prepared to give 27% of seats at the federal legislature to the Muslims. Jinnah, of course, could not carry the day, and he left a dejected man, and he said, almost with tears in his, one of his friends had written, with almost tears in his eyes, that, this is a parting of ways. I am not going to come back to Congress. He didn't come back to Congress again. That was the last time. That was the last time when a Muslim leader spoke about joint electorate in India. From the Muslim League, of course. The Congress leaders, of course, did speak. When a Muslim leader spoke about joint electorate in India, that was the last time. So this was this was what happened in 1929. So now we must come to Jinnah. Who was Jinnah? How did suddenly, became, this big? I will give some bits and pieces about Jinnah. Jinnah was a very successful lawyer. He's a very upright lawyer. When a client came to him, he asked him, what are your fees? He said it's 500 rupees a day. So the client said, I have 5,000 rupees. So you should appear for me, because they at that time the cases, they used to drag on and on and on. He said, I have only 5,000 rupees. I think you should accept 5,000 rupees. You should appear for me. Jinnah said, no. You give me 500 rupees a day per appearance, or you choose another lawyer. So that guy chose Jinnah, and the case was over in 3 days. So this guy gave him 5,000 rupees. Jinnah said, no, I want only our promise is this, and only 1,500 rupees. He took only 1,500 rupees. And he was a very successful lawyer. He had a house in, a fabulous house in Malabar Hill. He had a tragic, family life, and I don't want to go into all those things. He was a disciple of Gokhale, and he appeared for Tilak in a sedition case. He was called the Ambassador of Unity. The book's name is Ambassador of Unity by Sarojini Naidu, wrote a book on him. He was an Ambassador of Unity, and he was a moderate. He was against Ali brothers. He was against Khilafat movement. In fact, in 1918-19, there was a chance. It was an outside chance that Jinnah would have emerged as as the most prominent leader of the Congress. In fact, when Annie Besant was arrested during 1919, I think, the Congress leaders, they all assembled in Jinnah's house in Bombay at that time. So he was that big. Jinnah was that big. But Gandhi came and spoiled everything for him. This Jinnah could never forget. Of course, during the initial days, the relationship was quite cordial between Gandhi and Jinnah. And Jinnah had many good words for him. And Gandhi always had good words for Jinnah anyway. Gandhi never, said anything else. At that time, Jinnah had very good words for Gandhi. But as things, moved, in 1930, the Salt Satyagraha happened. Jinnah he was never for such mass movements, such mass agitations. And he found himself to be a nobody. Muslim League was also not picking up at that time. So he, as a dejected man, he returned to England. He said, I would not come to India at all. So he set up practice in England. He had a fine house in Hampstead, in London. He was living there happily. In 1934, Liaquat Ali Khan was a up-and-coming leader from United Provinces. He went to Hampstead and met Jinnah. And he requested Jinnah to come back to India. His wife was also there. Begum Ali Khan was also there. So both of them made a request to Jinnah. Jinnah said that you go to India and make an assessment and tell me. I would go by your judgment. If you think that if you think that my returning to India would help the cause of Muslims, I would leave everything and come. Liaquat Ali Khan went back and he wrote to Jinnah. Jinnah left everything in England and came back to India and became a leader again of the Muslim League. We forget that it was Jinnah who transformed the Muslim League. We keep saying that Congress became a mass movement and Gandhi transformed Congress into a mass movement. During the 1940s, Congress membership was around 4.5 million or 5 million people were in the Congress party. Muslim League, believe it or not, in the 20s, in 1924-25, his membership was, I read somewhere, at 1,337 precisely. In 1940s, after the Second World War, Muslim League membership rose to 2 million, which is big, which is very, very, very big. So, if Gandhi transformed Congress into a mass party, Jinnah transformed Muslim League into a mass party. That has to be accepted. But there's a crucial difference. Jinnah's supporters were all there in places where Muslims were minorities. This is a very paradox which I will explain to you in my subsequently. So now Jinnah's personality is also very, very important. Jinnah was a great orator. No, he was precise orator. He was a precise orator, and all became silent before him. His word was law. Gandhi's word. There's a big difference between Gandhi and Jinnah. People listened to Gandhi, but Gandhi's word was not law. People argued with Gandhi, people differed with Gandhi, and Gandhi also accepted it. No, Gandhi was a democratic man. Jinnah was not. He was an out and out autocrat. In the sense that his voice was never disobeyed, very rarely disobeyed in the Muslim League. Whenever he was disobeyed, the person went away or he was even stabbed. There are cases when, I will come to it later. He was the most important leader of Muslim League. Like the person whom I can compare is maybe Narendra Modi. But Narendra Modi didn't have the Jinnah's skills in a way. He doesn't have. But it's like his word was law. Jinnah's word was law. What happened was, in the meantime, Simon Commission came to India. Both Muslim League and Congress opposed Simon Commission. 3 roundtable conference happened to find out, to draft a suitable constitution for India, suitable government for India. As a result of all this, the British government came with the Act of 1935. This is a very important act, the 1935 Act, because it was under this act that election to the provinces happened all over India. The act also envisaged election to the central, now what they call the federal legislature, but it never happened anyway. I will not go into it, but the elections happened all over India. In this election, Muslim League fared very badly. In 1937 election, Muslim League fared very badly. The 2 major states of Punjab and Bengal returned Muslim candidates, but they didn't belong to the Muslim League party. In Punjab, the veteran Sikandar Hayat Khan of the Unionist Party was the leader. Though he was a Muslim, he had Sir Chotu Ram and all landlords were with him. So the Unionist Party and with the Akalis, they were able to form a government in, I think with the Akalis, if I remember correctly, form a government in Punjab. Muslim League did not get many seats in Punjab. The same was the case in Bengal. In Bengal, Fazlul Haq came into power. His party was Krishak Praja Party. His party was Krishak Praja Party, KPP. It came to power. There also Muslim League fared very badly. The Muslim League also fared not very well in places like UP and central provinces and Bombay and other places. So it is Congress Party which emerged successful in all these places. By all accounts, the relationship between Congress and Muslim League was not antagonistic during the elections. They were accommodative. They were quite accommodative. So it was expected by, of course, the Muslims, but not by the Congress Party, that there will be coalition governments, at least in places like Uttar Pradesh. The Muslim League expected at least 2 ministerial seats in Uttar Pradesh, but it did not happen. There are several reasons why it did not happen. Many people blame Jawaharlal Nehru, but that's not true. It was the Congress working committee which took a decision. Even Azad, if I remember correctly, Maulana Azad also says, it was Nehru who reduced the seat from 2 to 1. That was his story, but there's no evidence for those things, But the Congress Party did not want to have any trucks with Muslim League. They said Congress Party at that time was an umbrella party. You could have communists could be there and Hindu Mahasabha could be there. If you were a socialist, you could be there in Congress Party. The earlier Swaraj, but liberals were there in Congress Party. So Congress Party said if Muslim League wanted to join, the Congress ministry, they can join as a Congress member. Outside they can be Muslim. They can be in Muslim League party, but inside they should come as a Congress member, which of course Jinnah did not agree. But during this time, Jawaharlal Nehru, I must say, was not very politic when he made certain snide remarks about Muslim League. He spoke in one of the meetings that Congress party is there and our adversary is British. Okay, there's no other major party in India. As regards Muslim League, okay, I know more about the Muslim masses than many of the Muslim League leaders. This was what Nehru spoke. This was an intemperate speech, I must say. Of course, Nehru spoke millions and millions and millions of words. This was taken out and this was presented and it became a big issue. But even then, this was not a very temperate speech, and this was quoted against Nehru every time. Whenever he went to Jinnah, I think this speech was at the back of his mind. So Jinnah went out of the way to snub Nehru. Whenever he had an opportunity. Okay, this was the problem with the Congress. The Congress, the other important thing about the Congress during that time, during 1930s. Nehru report was not written by the old fogies of Congress. Jawaharlal Nehru was a member, Subhash Chandra Bose was a member, all youngsters were they also contributed to the Nehru report. Okay, during that time, Congress party's creed was absolutely secularism. There's absolutely no doubt about it. Giving away 2 ministerial bests to Muslim League would have been a very, very simple affair at that time. It was not a major issue at all. Why didn't Congress take this step? This question agitates many historians even now. The reason was this. See, Congress had four types of secular. Congress creed was secular, as I said. One was the first group was militant, secularists like the communists or the socialists. They were there in Congress party. The second level secularists are are youngsters, atheists, or were not so religious. Jawaharlal Nehru and Subhash Chandra Bose types. This is the second types of secularists in Congress. The third type is the fence sitters like Sardar Patel, Rajendra Prasad, and these are all fence sitters. They could be communal on one side, or they could be secular on the other. Sometimes they might be communal, sometimes they could be secular. And there were people who were really who loved the religion, but they are fiercely secular. People like Mahatma Gandhi, Khan Abdul Ghaffar Khan, Maulana Azad. These guys were they were religious at the same time. They were secular. Again, there were out and out communalists were also there in Congress party. Like earlier times, Madan Mohan Malya, later days, Purushottam Tandon. Such people were also there in Congress party. So whenever Congress party took a decision, it had to take care of everyone's viewpoint. Whichever states where let's say in UP, the communalists were, if they had the upper hand, Congress had to take a decision which would not totally upset the communalists. This was one of the dilemmas as democracy, for a democratic party. And Congress paid heavily for this, Congress many times did not take decisions which should have been, taken at the right time and the right decision. Congress did not take because of the intrinsic democratic content of the party, which was not the case with Muslim League. That's a difference. There's a crucial difference between Muslim League and the Congress party. Muslim League was like a unitary party, is like a Nazi party. One person takes a decision and everyone follows. It was like that. But Congress, by its very structure, could not have been such a party. And India did not want such a party. Again, hindsight says that India is what it is today because Congress was at the helm of affairs at that time. I will come to it later. See, in 1937, in Maharashtra, Nariman was a very popular leader, but he was a Parsi, he was not elected. The same way, in Bihar, Syed Mahmood could have been elected, but Sri Krishna Sinha was elected, So these were the decisions which Congress party took, which really hurt the Muslims, which really hurt the image of the Congress party during that time. The 1937 ministry could continue only for 2 years. The Congress ministry, other ministries continued. The reason was Second World War intervened. During the Second World War, the Viceroy declared war against Germany and Italy on his own without consulting any of the leaders. He didn't consult the Muslim leaders, he didn't consult the Hindu leaders. Of course, immediately informed them, but he didn't consult them before declaring India as a hostile party. The Congress, did not like that thing. So the Congress said that, this war you are fighting against fascist forces, we will support you. But at the same time, you should listen to us. Okay, we will fight the war on our own. We should not fight the war as he was chosen. That's what the Congress party said. The Muslim League, of course, they were waiting and watching. This was, when this was going on, the Congress party did not know what to do at that time. In 1939 and 1940, the individual satyagraha, Jawaharlal, Mahatma Gandhi, they didn't want to upset the British government too much at that time because British government was fighting a war. So the Congress was at that time on the horns of dilemma. The Muslim League chose this moment to announce his Pakistan resolution. The March 23rd, I think if I remember correctly, in 1940, the Muslim League threw this bombshell. The idea of Pakistan was discussed earlier by, in fact, Allama Iqbal had discussed it with Jinnah. In fact, he had discussed it with Jinnah. It was he written letters to Jinnah. In fact, Chaudhry Rahmat Ali, one student in Cambridge, he came out with the very word Pakistan was his coinage. But the Pakistan resolution said very clearly that wherever Muslim majority regions were there in India, they would be considered as sovereign. They would be considered as sovereign, which meant that Bengal will be, will like to become a sovereign state, and Punjab would like to become a sovereign state. The story, in fact, Jinnah, he didn't acknowledge that the Pakistan idea was mooted by Allama Iqbal. He didn't acknowledge that even, in fact. As regards Chaudhry Ahmad Ali, his story is even strange. In 1947, when Pakistan came about, he called Jinnah Kuslingi Azam. Kusling was a Norwegian trader who sided with the Nazis. So Kusling at that time was a byword for for treachery, because he felt that Jinnah did not get complete Punjab and Bengal. He only got half of it. So the Ahmad Ali came to Pakistan. Nobody cared for him. Then he again went back to England. He died a unknown man. So this happened to the man who invented the name of Pakistan. So Jinnah was the only man who was recognized by Pakistan. Now of course people say Iqbal, but Jinnah did not acknowledge Iqbal's role in that thing. When Pakistan resolution was passed by Muslim League in Delhi, immediately Muslim organized a conference, a major conference where nationalist Muslim participated. Allah Baksh, the Prime Minister of Sindh, he participated. Shias, religious organizations, Shias participated. They all said that this is a pernicious resolution. We will fight against this. We want an united India. We want to live with India. This was what a group of Muslims said. The pity is they didn't have the popular support at that time. Maybe if the Congress had given them some hope, they might have flowered, but nobody knows. At that time, Jinnah carried the day all over India, and his word was law. But this is, I don't know how it came about. It is still a mystery. Historians are still finding out how a Muslim who is living in Chennai, let us say, what will he gain by Pakistan? Why did he support Jinnah? Or a Muslim who is living in, let's say, in Bombay. Okay, these are the places where the support was Jinnah was phenomenal at that time. His name was magic at that time. The entire Muslims at that time, especially the educated Muslims of that time, Jinnah was a hero. He was a hero because the British government also listened to him. When Viceroy called Gandhi to inform him that he has declared war against Germany and Italy, he also called Jinnah. Jinnah was pleasantly surprised. He said, the first time I am being called along with Mahatma Gandhi. He mentioned it to someone. So this is how it happened in 1940. When 1940 it happened, the Pakistan resolution, everybody thought this was fantasy. Pakistan resolution was a fantasy. Many people asked, what is this Pakistan? Okay, Jinnah was vague. Till the end he was vague. He didn't define where is Pakistan will be. In fact, there was an interview with the governor of Madras and Jinnah. At that time also he said, there will be Pakistan, there will be Bangistan. Bangistan is the Bengal region. There will be Dravidistan, there will be Osmanistan, and Hindustan will be central provinces and Bombay. In Jinnah's mind, is Pakistan included? Even the United Province, Uttar Pradesh, it included. I don't know where I read this. A Muslim couple, they were walking in Humayun's tomb in Delhi. So the husband tells the wife, so in a few years, this will all be Pakistan. This will be our place. That was their fantasy. The Delhi will be with Pakistan. It's like this. So in fact, I quoted one of the statements of Liaquat Ali Khan, when he said that, why didn't you define Pakistan? Someone asked him. So he said, if we say Punjab, if we say it is only Punjab, that would mean that our boundary will end in Gurgaon. Okay. Whereas we want Delhi with us. We want Aligarh with us. We want Agra with us. Okay. These are all, these are all our centers of culture. Okay. That is why we are not defined Pakistan. So Pakistan was vague. The Congress also did not take, seriously about this Pakistan. The Congress party was ridiculing, and nobody took the Muslim League's resolution seriously. In fact, Jinnah did not use the word Pakistan till 1943. It did not even use the word Pakistan. It was this vague. In 1942, Stafford Cripps came to India. Stafford Cripps was part of the Churchill's cabinet. Churchill had to send Cripps to India because of pressure from Roosevelt. Roosevelt wanted Churchill to take Indians' demand seriously. Churchill, by himself he would not have moved an inch, but he was pressurized by Roosevelt to act. So he sent Cripps to India. Cripps, of course, was an old friend of Gandhi, Nehru. He was a Labour Party man. He was a friend of many Congress leaders. But the Cripps offer was completely rejected by in the Congress party, and of course the Muslim League also did not, agree to the Crips offer. The Crips offer was this, that there will be a loose federal government, okay, and the provinces will be more or less autonomous, and if they want to separate, they can separate. All this will happen only after the war is over and India has entered a treaty with Britain. Till such time, the Viceroy will be all in all. So the Congress, naturally, they didn't agree to this. They wanted to participate in decision making. If India has to enter the war in a big way, the decision to do so should be taken by Indians themselves. The white man should not take decisions on behalf of India. This was the stand of Congress. Okay, this stand was not accepted by the British. So, with great reluctance, Congress launched the Quit India movement in 1942. There are, of course, many stories about quit, whether it was a success or a failure. Most of the leaders were in prison for more than 3 years, which enabled Jinnah to spread his wings. Congress party was declared illegal. Congressmen were all underground. And when Congress could not do much, they could propagate freely among the Muslims. And the idea of, separation was propagated during this is what is being said by historians. Yeah, this is true to a great extent. But at the same time, when Congress leaders came out of the prison, their prestige was sky high. That was the reason why in the 1946 election, Congress could win all over India where Muslims were not a majority. I will not say Hindus are majority, where Muslims were not a majority. The one leader who did not participate in the Quit India movement was C. Rajagopalachari. He was not in Congress at that time, so he was against Quit India movement. So he was not in prison. By 1944, when Gandhi came out of prison, Rajaji approached Gandhi with this formula. Rajaji's formula was this. Rajaji said that British should quit and Muslim League and Congress should form a government at the center with three important things, communication, external affairs and defense and few other things, he said, they should be with the central government. In the states where Muslims are majority in contiguous districts, in areas like Punjab and Bengal, there should be a plebiscite. In this plebiscite, if the Muslims decide to go separate, that should be accepted by the Congress. Okay. If they don't want to go separate, they should join the Indian Union. This was Rajaji's formula. Finally, this was what more or less happened in 1947. But in 1944, Jinnah contemptuously rejected this as the moth-eaten Pakistan. This is a famous statement of Jinnah. Jinnah rejected it contemptuously. Gandhi went to Jinnah's house 14 times to plead with him, to discuss with him. What happened was Jinnah's prestige skyrocketed, but nothing could happen. Jinnah was very rigid. What Jinnah said was, is very funny. For plebiscite, only Muslims should be, only Muslims should be allowed to vote. The Hindus should not be allowed to vote. Hindus and other non-Muslims should not be allowed to vote. If majority of Muslims decide that there should be Pakistan, there should be Pakistan. That was his offer, Jinnah's offer. Naturally, Gandhi or Rajaji did not accept it. See, the war ended in 1945. The Congress leaders, were released after 3 years in prison. Then, when the Congress leaders came, the Simla conference happened. Again, Jinnah's stand was, rigid. He wanted equal share in the legislature. He said, democracy is unsuited to Indians. We are a nation. Muslims are a nation. Hindus are a nation. So if one nation, has 50 seats, the other nation should also have 50 seats. This was his stand. So at that time, the British government, it was not in a position to rule India during that time. So they sent the cabinet mission under the leadership of Pethick Lawrence, A.V. Alexander and Cripps. All the three, they came here. And the cabinet mission met. And the cabinet mission also came out with the formula. A weak center, separate electorate. There will be a three-tier structure. There are provinces, and there will be a group. In between there will be a group, and there will be a federal structure. And the federal will have only the defense and the communication and external affairs. This will be the federal structure. And the residual powers will be with the states, not with the center. Residual powers with the state, the Hindu majority areas will be on group A. Muslim majority area will be, in the western side will be in group B. Assam and Bengal will be in the group 3. There are 3 groups they separated. And the states also, that is the kings, they will also come and join the federal structure. It was so hodgepodge, the cabinet plan was, they said that the groups can decide whether to join the union or not. If they don't want to join the union, they can form their own constitution. The federal structure will have their own constitution. Even if they join the federal structure, after 10 years they want to come back, they want to withdraw, they can withdraw. Some of the states want to join the federation, they can join the federation. So this will be done every 10-year interval. You imagine in the India, envisaged by the cabinet mission. This was the plan which was given by the cabinet mission. The Congress accepted this mission to save India. Okay, the Congress said that yes, the Congress accepted the plan, temporarily to save India, because the cabinet mission plan envisaged a constituent assembly. So the Congress wanted to form a constituent assembly. It accepted the mission. When Jawaharlal Nehru became, this is a very important thing, when Jawaharlal Nehru became the president of Congress, July 10th, 1946, I think, he gave a press conference. In that conference, he said the exact stand of the Congress. The Congress stand was that a constituent assembly will be there. The constituent assembly, as per the cabinet mission itself, is a sovereign body except for 2 things. Number 1, it would take care of the minority interests. Number 2, it would enter into a treaty with the British government as to how the minorities will be treated, how the other minorities and other communities will be treated. These 2 things, other than these 2 things, the Constituent Assembly will be sovereign. So Nehru said that all other things are okay, the grouping and all those things are okay, but it was for the Constituent Assembly to take a decision. It is independent, it will take its own decision. This was the statement made by Jawaharlal Nehru. This was the position of the Congress party, but this was blown out of proportion by the Muslim League. The Muslim League said that the Congress reneged on their pledge. We are not going to accept the cabinet mission's plan, and we are not going to join the Constituent Assembly. So this was June this. Then Jinnah announced his direct action day. He said, so far I have followed, constitutional methods. Now I will follow the other method. So what happened in Calcutta? Before that, I should tell you, in January 15, 1946, one day before the direct action day, Jawaharlal Nehru met Jinnah and invited Muslim League to join the government, the interim government, which was to have 5 Muslim League members and 5 Congress members. And he also assured him that the groups and everything will be completely discussed in the Constituent Assembly. Okay. He only said we should not impose our decision on the Constituent Assembly, otherwise it will not be a Constituent Assembly. That was Jawaharlal Nehru's view. But Jinnah didn't listen to him, and the direct action day was on August 16, 1946. In Calcutta, Hindus were first killed in thousands, then Sikhs and Hindus retaliated, Muslims were killed, then Naukali happened, Gurumukteshwar happened. There were murders galore all over India. Congress couldn't do anything. Then the Muslim League joined the Nehru's cabinet. Liaquat Ali Khan was the finance minister. He blocked everything. Okay, so the Congress came to a conclusion that it is impossible to be with the Muslims because they will be obstructing at every step. That was what Muslim League said, and that was what Muslim League did during the years of 1946. In fact, it is monstrous. It is almost monstrous to even think about the way they acted during those days. I don't know how the Indian government sustained all those things and remained sane. It was insane. It was almost insane. If you ask me, it was almost insane. So when Mountbatten came, and Mountbatten offered that the Muslim majority areas of the western region of India will be separate, and the Muslim majority area of eastern region will be separate, the Congress had no other option except to accept it. There was, of course, some move from Bengal side to present a united Bengal. Subhash Chandra Bose's brother Sarat Bose and Fazlul Haq, they mooted that, but that came to nothing because the Hindus didn't want it. The Hindus didn't want to be with the Muslims. They said no, enough is enough. So India happened. The Indian Constituent Assembly made a constitution which was more or less, what was envisaged in the Nehru report. Please, you remember this. What has happened is the British government, it had a strong center and weak provinces. Okay, but consistently they did not want that to happen in free India. Consistently, they always wanted a weak center and strong provinces. Jinnah, please, this is a very important point. Please listen to me carefully. Jinnah also wanted a weak center and a strong states. Okay, but what actually happened? In India, we framed a constitution with a strong center, with clearly defined power to states. India became a democracy, and from 1950 onwards, and 1951 the elections took place. From that time onwards, India remains a vibrant democracy with all noises, with all dins, with all fights, fist fights and everything. It remains a vibrant democracy until today. Okay, even BJP, if you see application form of BJP, their pledge is, I subscribe to the concept of a secular state and nation not based on religion. This is, if you want to become a BJP member, you should take this pledge. So secularism is something which was a Congress creed that can never be given up even in modern India. Even with this Hindutva forces at the helm of affairs, it's so strong here in India. Okay, this is India. What has happened in Pakistan? Jinnah wanted a weak center and a strong states. It never happened in Pakistan. Pakistan always had a very strong center, and the states were always weak. Even today, the states are weak. They are not strong at all. Balochistan is not strong. Northwest province is not strong, and Sindh is not strong. Only Punjab is strong. And the first general election that happened in Pakistan was in 1970, which resulted in the creation of Bangladesh. The only general election, the major general election of combined Pakistan happened in 1970, which ensured that Bangladesh was created. So Jinnah's two-nation theory, Muslims are a separate nation, Hindus are a separate nation, was disproved by Pakistan itself. So, to cut the long story short, it's a very long story. To cut the long story short, our founding fathers did make mistakes. I am not saying that they have not made mistakes, but those mistakes were all unintentional. They were not deliberate. In hindsight, they look like mistakes to us. But the Indian independence movement is a very, very complex movement. I want to give a simile. Let us say that there's a pot of sweet water. Okay, and you want to take that water and transfer it to a thirsty people who are away from that pot. They can't reach the pot. You are the carrier of that sweet water, let us say, and the only method available is to lift the water in your hand, cup that water in your hands and take it to the people. So the water will spill on the way. So whatever you reach to the people will not be what you took from the pot. This is precisely what happened to the Indian freedom movement. Ideas were all there. Noble ideas were there, but carrying that noble idea to the people was quite difficult. So what reached the people were not as noble as it was available when they were in the pot. When they were the original thing, for which the Indian leaders should not be blamed at all. They were great. Those people were great. One thing I forgot to mention, there were big players. There were big players during the freedom movement. Big players like Periyar or Qaide Millard. For the life of me, I didn't understand why in 1946 the Muslims in Tamil Nadu voted for the Muslim League. 100% they voted for the Muslim League, and the Muslim League stood for Pakistan. Qaide Millard said that I will give my life for Pakistan. I don't know why. He was in Tamil Nadu. I don't know why he said that. It was the foolishness of the Indian Muslim leaders at that time, with blinkers on. That was one of the reasons why the Muslims were not able to play an active part in Indian politics for a long time. It's because of short-sightedness of the Muslim leaders. I absolutely no hesitation in saying this. This is totally wrong. They should have come out. They should have said very clearly. They should have kept the identity. I have absolutely no problem at all. They should have said, we are Muslim League, but we don't want Pakistan. We don't. As far as we are concerned, we are with the Indian Union. We want Indian Union. They should have said that, which they didn't do. Okay, in fact, the Aligarh Muslim University in all those places, that is why, that was why the distress which was already there, that expanded, It's a sad truth. It's a sad truth. Remember one thing. This is very, very important thing we should remember. Pakistan came about because of the main slogan. What is the main slogan was? Islam is in danger. Okay. When they said Islam in danger, and finally the people who live in India, the Muslims who are in India, even today, okay, just because Jinnah said Islam in danger to get his Pakistan and went away, many of them feel that today, at least today, they feel that they are not living a safe life. They actually feel in danger today, and they can't do anything about it. All this has happened because of the creation of Pakistan. The same thing, I'm quite sure, will hold good if someone says Hindus are in danger, or Tamils are in danger, or Telugus are in danger. India today, this I am writing it again and again. Wherever I get an opportunity to write this, but again I want to say this again. India is a reality. Modern India is a reality. All other things, separate Tamil Nadu, separate Dravida Nadu, separate Nagaland, they are all pies in the skies. They are all myths. Okay. And to create Pakistan, we had to sacrifice more than 1 million people. And I don't want Indians to die to get something which in the Pakistan case, it was not actually what they really wanted. It's the other way around. No, Jinnah was very ill. He knew that he was ill, but he was till the end. He was telling everyone that I am quite okay. He didn't want to reveal that his illness was. He had a pneumonia of lungs, which was a killing disease during those days. But had he died earlier, see, the thing is, instead of let's say if Jinnah died in 1945, would Pakistan have happened? I think Pakistan would have happened. Pakistan would have happened, I think. But the historical forces, cannot be stopped by individuals. By that time, the poison has spread. And whatever, it would happen in a different way. Bengal would not have joined with Jinnah at that time, But north of frontier provinces would not have joined with Pakistan. It would have happened in a different way. But in Punjab, there would have been a separate Muslim state. And in Bengal, there would have been a separate Muslim state. That would have certainly happened. That's what I think. No, Gandhi was in Calcutta. He didn't want India to be split. He didn't want to celebrate. He was there in Calcutta and he was instrumental in keeping calm in the eastern region, So that's why he was called the one-man boundary force by Mountbatten, There was no riot on the eastern side during those days, to 1947, okay. The riots were there, all there in the western side, Yes, after the Delhi fast, Gandhi wanted to go to Pakistan. In February, of course, there was a program for Pakistan. Pakistan was dreading his arrival, in fact, Pakistan was dreading his arrival, Gandhi's arrival. No, I will not say that, it was only Jinnah who was responsible for Pakistan. Jinnah was instrumental in getting, in partition. Partition happened because the trust between Hindus and Muslims at that time, they evaporated. So had it not been Jinnah, some other person would have come and stoked that mistrust, So Jinnah was an instrument. There was no directive from Muslim League, there was absolutely no directive from them. They only said, you can act whatever way you please, They never, asked them to murder the Hindus, Explicitly, they didn't ask them to murder the Hindus. It was never said at all. To talk, it is really good to talk about having a federation of, South Asia. Is possible, Why only Pakistan? It will be Pakistan, Bangladesh, Nepal, Bhutan, all countries, we can have a federation. Like European, we can have a union. Absolutely no problem at all. That will happen one day. I am not sure about that. I am not sure. That depended on the way religion played in the minds of the Muslims, and under the minds of the, the Hindus. So long as religion plays a part in politics, it's impossible to have a progressive nation, especially in countries like India, where religion plays a big role.